Warning: the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for some audiences. Accordingly, viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone. Hi Carol. Dave is sort of kind of with us. He's not going to be live with us for a little bit. He's having technical issues, so he is working on that. But he is in the background, so he can see your hello, Carol. But yeah, he's working on his computer, and hopefully he'll get that up and going the way it should so he can jump on in with us. So I'll be anxious for that. This will be the first show I've done by myself here. And so anyway, hello everyone. Hi. Yes, Carol. Hi. So we are talking about Beverly Ollett tonight. I don't know how many of you have heard of her. We picked a story out of Grantham, Lincolnshire, England. And she is considered to be one of Britain's most notorious serial killers and dubbed the Angel of Death. And I want to give everyone just a little bit of a heads up before I really get into the story. Because some people can be a little more sensitive depending on who the victims are. Her victims were children and infants. So, yes, that is a picture of her and her family, and also the hospital where she is at right now. So, I just kind of wanted to give everybody a heads up that, we do have small children and infants who are the victims. She was born October 4th, 1968, like I said, in Grantham, Lincolnshire, England, and she's currently incarcerated at Rampton Secure Hospital in Nottinghamshire. I think I pronounced that right. She was sentenced to 13 life sentences, 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 6 counts of grievous bodily harm. And she was sentenced in May 1993. Hi, Penny. Again, for those just joining in, Dave's having some technical difficulties, but he is expecting. Hi, Ken. Dave is expecting to have the technical issues resolved before the end of the show and jump in with us and help finish this out. But Miss Beverly had 13 victims, and that is including the 4 deaths of the infants. She used insulin and other unknown toxic substances to commit these crimes. And the 4 victims that were murdered were infants, and she attempted to murder 3 other infants, causing grievous bodily injury to 6 others. And that was, her crime spree was between February and April of 1991. So it was a very short time span. She is now also eligible for release on parole, which some of this just, really baffles my mind, to be honest. Um, and I really, like as usual, throw your thoughts and opinions in on this, because some of this I have a lot of question about, as far as her still being in the hospital. And we'll get to that. I'm going to kind of do what Dave does, going through the rundown of it. Um, but a coworker became suspicious after one of the infants' deaths. The infant was named Becky, and things just weren't adding up. And the common denominator between all of the injuries or deaths, yes, yes, she was quite young, Carol. Um, but the common denominator between all of them was that Beverly Ollett was working. She was on duty every time something happened. There were also missing nursing logs, and other things that they just started putting together and causing questions. Um, and I'm going to kind of just briefly go through some of the victims here, because it's easy to just talk about the perpetrator of the crime, because of course, we wouldn't have a story without them. But I want to make sure to also cover the little lives that were lost. And my heart hurts. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I couldn't imagine. But we had Liam Taylor, who was 7 weeks old. These are the deaths. I'm going to cover the deaths first. Liam Taylor, who died at 7 weeks old, and he was admitted to the hospital ward for a chest infection, and he was murdered February 22nd, 1991. Timothy Hardwick was 11 years old. He was a boy with cerebral palsy. He was admitted to the ward after having an epileptic seizure, and he was murdered March 5th of 1991. Becky Phillips, 9 weeks old, admitted to the ward for gastroenteritis on April 1st, 1991, and she was administered an insulin overdose and died at home 2 days later. Um, Now, her death was originally believed to have been cot death, and cot death is what we call SIDS. So I think that's the difference. I had to Google cot death. I was like, I've never heard cot death. And so when I looked it up, it was SIDS, which I dealt with as an EMT, so I knew immediately what they were talking about. Claire Peck was 15 months old, and she was admitted to the ward following an asthma attack on April 22nd of 1991. After being put on a ventilator, she was left alone in Alett's care for a short interval, during which time she went into cardiac arrest. She was resuscitated but died after a second episode of cardiac arrest. In that second time, she had been left alone with Ollett again. Um, and then this to me just really hit me in a hard way, just thinking about the family, because Becky's sister, Becky Phillips, who died at 9 weeks old, her sister, who was Katie Phillips, was also a victim. However, she survived. So, to think of, it's bad enough to just have one child, be a victim, but two of your children be a victim. I can't imagine. But the victims were Kaylee Desmond, who was 1 years old, and she had a chest infection, and she was murdered on March 8th of 1991. Paul Crampton, 5 months old, admitted for a chest infection and murdered March 20th of 91. Bradley Gibson, 5 years old, and he was admitted for pneumonia, and he died March 21st, 1991. Michael Davidson, 6 years old, admitted to the ward for post-operative care, And I'm probably going to butcher this. Yik Hung Chan, um, also known as Henry. So we're going to go with Henry. Um, but he felt, I'm sorry, he was admitted to the ward following a fall on March 21st, 1991. He had an oxygen desaturation attack before he was transferred to another hospital where he recovered. And then Katie Phillips, then 2 months old, was Becky's twin, and she was admitted to the ward as a precaution following the death of her sister, who had to be resuscitated twice. So Katie was not sick or having any issues. It was just precautionary due to Becky's death. Schooling is different in the UK. She left school at 16, failed to get into a certain girls' school, and says she took a course in nursing college while she was able to be taking care of babies with only that little bit of schooling. Yes, ma'am. And actually, my grandmother entered nursing. No, I can't speak. I'm getting tongue tied. Nursing school at UK Hospital here in Kentucky at 16. Excuse me. Um, which was unheard of. But my grandmother's from a totally different generation, but she was able to graduate early and start nursing school at UK. But yeah, that certainly wouldn't be allowed now. And she definitely went through the whole college course. It wasn't just some little fly by night course. So yeah, I'm with you, Carol. That's crazy to me. Um, and then but Katie was she died of potassium overdoses, and I'm sorry, she didn't die, her sister died, and she had insulin and potassium overdoses. Following the second time that she stopped breathing, she was transferred to another hospital, but by this time she had incurred permanent brain damage, partial paralysis, and partial blindness due to oxygen deprivation. Her parents had been so grateful for all its care of Becky that they had asked her to be Katie's godmother. Can you imagine? I mean, that is just astounding. This was still during the time that they thought Becky had died of cot death or SIDS. They had no idea they were asking their daughter's murder to be their other child's godmother. In 1999, Katie was awarded 2.1 EUs, the equivalent of 4 million in 2021, by Lincolnshire Health Authority to pay for treatment and equipment for the rest of her life. And then we had Kaylee Asher, who was 13 months old, and it's believed that Owlett injected her with air under her armpit, causing her to have 2 heart attacks. And I know it sounds a little humdrum to just go through a list of victims and stuff. I don't mean for it to be so boring, but I definitely want to give some recognition to these little lives who were just barely getting going, and definitely not forget them and just focus on this horrible person that took their life. Um, and my heart goes out to the family. I cannot imagine asking my child's murderer to be my other child's godmother. Granted they didn't know, but I mean, just the realization when you find that out, just it just had to add salt to the wound of everything. Um, but she was found guilty on all charges on May 28th, 1993, and Allett had told her friends and family that she would not go to prison. After 1 week in prison, she refused to eat or drink, so she was moved to the hospital. There were a couple experts that had examined her and determined, the condition of her mental state, and determined that she should be in prison and not the hospital. However, to this day, she remains at the hospital. So, I mean, I'm baffled by this. I cannot find any information as to why she is still there. I might have just overlooked something. So, Carol, if you have any information on that, since you have some details that you're putting in here, please feel free to share. And if anybody has thoughts or opinions, like jump in because I'm just baffled. Um, and part of why I'm baffled by it is because some of the victims' families have been coming out publicly and stating that the hospital she's at is more like they called it, in quotes, a Butlin's holiday camp than a prison. And, you know, I think, me too, Carol. I'm at a complete loss too. Um, so let's see. Okay. I'm sorry. I was checking something there. Okay. So, yeah, Carol, I was just trying to see if there was anything on here that I missed. And I mean, yeah, there's nothing I can think. I couldn't find anything. Um, but according to one theory, she had shown symptoms of fictitious fictitious disorder imposed on another, also known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And police felt by July 26, 1991, that they had enough to arrest her for murder, but she wasn't charged formally until November 1991. Yes, Carol, that is correct. They believe that she has Munchausen syndrome, along with the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So if I understand correct, and Carol, please correct me if I am wrong, Munchausen syndrome is when you are under the belief or whatever that there are illnesses and diseases and problems with yourself, causing you to go to the doctor or cause yourself to have symptoms so that you can go and get treatment, things like that. But that's more yourself. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is when you inflict that on other people, and the reason for it can be different. Sometimes it's so that you can try to rush in and be the savior of the sick person or whatever. Or, yes, that's true to your own children. In fact, there's a big story about that very situation. So, but anyway, you know, it still just baffles me. I mean, I guess if she has a mental disorder, yes, or yourself. Correct. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I had that correct, that I was understanding correct. Um, okay. So, anyway, during the police interviews, Beverly remained calm and restrained, denying any part in the murders. During a search of her home, the missing nursing logs were found, and the trial lasted nearly 10 months, but Beverly only attended 16 days due to illness. The repercussions of this case on the hospital were so severe that they closed the maternity unit. And she has since, after some time being at Rampton Secure Hospital, has admitted to 3 of the 4 murders and 6 assaults. She began eating ground glass, pouring boiling water into her hands, and other strange behaviors while at the hospital as well. So I guess that could kind of go with the Munchausen syndrome, Dina. Dina says there's extreme cases of Munchausen by proxy. Yes. Yeah, I agree, Dina. Um, in 2001, report stated she was marrying fellow inmate Mark Heggie, though she remains single. to this day. Many, including victims, like I said, are, really upset that she's still at this hospital because, they don't feel that she's adequately receiving punishment. And, I don't know much about this hospital and stuff, but I might be leaning more kind of along with the family and their thoughts and feelings about it. Um, that's the bulk of the facts on this. Um, to to individuals not related. Um, you never heard of that. You never. I'm sorry, Carol. Never heard of what? Um, yeah, Carol. If you could clarify what you never heard of, I would greatly appreciate it. But I mean, it's a very very sad case, and of course, the family Munchausen. Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Um, Trying to think. Hold on. Shoot, what is her name? Dave, we might have to do a story on the other one. Oh my gosh, her. If I wasn't sitting here trying to think of her name, I could tell you. There's a story about a girl whose mother had the Munchausen, had her in a wheelchair and all that stuff, and they were fleecing people for all kinds of money and stuff. Maybe be a good story to do at some point, but it was a similar thing here. Um, so my son is also trying to jump in the comments. I have not seen him yet. He's at work, but he's gonna try to jump in on his break. So kind of watching for him too. And just in case you're there, Tristan, hello. I don't know if you're able to comment. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. Um, yes, Carol, it is usually to your own family relations. Yes. Um, yeah, and that's kind of what when I was studying much housing syndrome, I say study, and I didn't really study. I mean, just kind of looking through it. Um, that's kind of what I was finding is it is usually either 2 years. That's it, Gypsy. Yes, thank you, Gypsy Blanchard. Thank you, Dina. Lady, sometimes I'm kind of lost without you. I'm glad you're here. I was sitting here feeling stupid because I know the story fairly well and sitting here trying to think of her name. I was drawing a total blank. So thank you. Um, so yes, Gypsy Blanchett. I'm getting tongue tied again. Gypsy Blanchard was her name, and I believe she is out now. But yes, that was a classic case of Munchausen syndrome, and exactly what you were saying, Carol. The mother was inflicting this on her daughter, Gypsy. And so, if any of you have heard of that, okay, yeah, Dina. I was trying not to have to do that because with Dave not here, able to help out with some of the talking, for me I started to turn over and search it up, but then I quit talking and I'm like, I appreciate you. Um, so yeah, if y'all have any knowledge of that story of Gypsy Blanchard, that is a classic case of what we are discussing here with Beverly Ollett as far as the Munchausen syndrome. So yeah, Carol is absolutely correct. It's usually done to your family members, and I have known of some situations where they did it to themselves and not a family member. Um, so, Carol, just curious, do you have any other facts or anything to throw in here? Like, feel free to jump in. Anything that you have heard or read on this, like, I would appreciate any information because sometimes y'all are able to to throw details in that I hadn't run across yet. Um, so like I any comments you guys have, throw them in. I know in different parts of the world she's been called the baby killer, the angel of death, um, various um, child killer, all kinds of names, understandably so. Um, but she has not been released, but she is eligible for parole, and she had to do a minimum, they call it a minimum tariff. She had to do a minimum tariff of 30 years imprisonment, which expired in November of 2021. Okay, Dina. So, okay, it's fine. Um, First off, Dina, Dave is having technical issues. He is currently working on them. He's here trying to help produce in the background, but he's trying to get his computer up. So he thinks he might be able to jump in before the show ends. So that's why y'all got me. Yay. But the subject is Beverly Allitt, better known as the Angel of Death, and she was born in October of 68 in England. She's currently incarcerated in Rampton Secure Hospital in Nottinghamshire, and she was sentenced to 13 life sentences, 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 6 counts of grievous bodily harm. And she was a nurse at a local hospital there. And her victims range from like 7 weeks old, 7 weeks old, and I believe the oldest was, what did I say, 11? I believe 11 is what I stated. But most of them were infants and small children, the vast majority. I know, Dina. And at the beginning of the show, I kind of let everybody know because I know some subjects can hit people a little bit differently. And considering none of the victims were teenagers or adults, I kind of wanted everybody to kind of be prepared. They're infants, and, outside of the one 11-year old and then I believe a 6-year old. Um, but the rest were all, 7 weeks old, 2 months old, um, ages, small children. So yes, that is the subject tonight. And Dina, also, I don't know if you were in here at the time, but the maternity ward of the hospital ended up closing. It was such a major story. It has so many repercussions. They ended up having to close the maternity ward there. So if you have thoughts, Dina, now that you know what the subject is, feel free to throw them in. I know you. What is factitious disorder? You never heard of that? Okay, so Carol, that's what I was saying. Is that's what they are calling the Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So they were saying she was diagnosed with Munchausen syndrome, like we were discussing with the Gypsy Blanchett story and stuff, but also Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So they're saying there is a little bit of a difference there between the two. Um, Let me see. I'm gonna try to Google this. But I have it in my save deal here. Okay, so basically it says Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a psychological disorder marked by attention-seeking behavior by a caregiver through those who are in their care. And it says it's a relatively rare behavioral disorder and affects a primary caregiver, often the mother. So, she No, they're saying that's what she had when she was doing this to the children. Here's the difference. I just Googled so I can give you the exact definition for Munchausen syndrome. So earlier when I said Munchausen syndrome, you can do it to your, like to yourself. Say you are falsifying illnesses and or symptoms, and you might believe even, like actually believe you have it, even if you're causing some of the symptoms yourself. Munchausen syndrome is when you do it to yourself, not to someone else's. Munchausen syndrome by proxy is when you do it to someone else, whether it is your own child, grandchild, your neighbor. In Beverly case, it is the children in the hospital ward that she's in charge of their care. So that is the difference between Munchausen syndrome and Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Is Munchausen syndrome, you do it to yourself. By proxy is when you do it to another person. And Munchausen by proxy, they said normally is between and her child, is the most common form of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So that is, excuse me, that is the difference between the two of them. Um, and I'm baffled as to. I get that this lady, if she really does have Munchausen syndrome by proxy, she needs some kind of, I guess, mental treatment. You're welcome, Carol. She needs some kind of mental care, but I don't think that her time being served should be so easy that it is considered, a retreat or, a holiday. We call it a vacation here, and I guess over there they call it a holiday. So, a little difference in the language used, but, and it's not that I don't want to sound horrible and just say that I don't care about people when they have a mental disorder. Um, I'm here shaking my head. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, Carol. Um, I definitely I understand there's mental disorders out there, and I can have compassion in that aspect. But if you are still aware of what you're doing and you know it's wrong and things, my compassion can still only go so far for you. My real compassion and concern are these children and babies whose lives were cut so short. We're never going to know who they could have been and what benefit they could have added to society, or the grief that the families went through and the loss. And so that's where the bulk of my compassion comes from. And, my compassion for her, for Beverly Ollett, if she has this mental disorder, is that yes, it needs to be addressed and she needs adequate care for that. But it still shouldn't be so light that it's more or less a vacation for her. She still murdered children, permanently damaged another one, and caused, a lot of harm to others. And, we can't forget that either. As it's an obsessive 13 life sentences, Carol. Okay, let me look on there. Yeah, yeah, 13 life sentences. She did. Yeah, I'm flipping back to my first page here. I got it. Yes, 13 life sentences and 4 counts of murder, 5 counts attempted counts of grievous bodily harm. So that is on. I got that information on Wikipedia. So, so at least on the 13 life sentences, I guess both are kind of comparable there. Dina says it's an obsessive disorder too. It's not for, say, financial gain or even control of that individual, but for attention and control over the broader situations. Yeah, that's correct. And when I was reading in on this a little bit, Murderpedia, Murder Pedlet. Um, Dina, that's correct. That's kind of what I was reading. Is it is a mental disorder, where you kind of put this stuff off on somebody else, but for many of them, spell check is terrible. You don't know how many times I get in trouble with that. I'll send a message and I'll read it and it looks correct when I read it, but when I send it, and I sound totally ignorant. um, so anyway, Dina, what I read, what many believe is that sometimes in it is not just the control over the broader situation, like you brought up. That is very definitely an aspect of it, but with it also is, you know, you and then you want to rush in and be the nurse that saves the patient, or something that way. So, yeah, Murderpedia. Yeah, Murderpedia and Wikipedia are both saying 13 life sentences. Let me see here because I look at Murderpedia a lot too. Trying to see how it differs from what I have. Yeah, see, Murderpedia thing I don't like Murderpedia is it states she only had 4 victims because they're only looking at the deaths. But Wikipedia includes the people who were still victims in other ways. They don't just look at the deaths. Um, so, and then on here on Murderpedia, they only list the 13 life sentences, which is correct. Wikipedia lists all of the victims, not just the ones who died, but the ones who were victims in other aspects. And like I said, one child has lifelong damage, brain damage, and other things. That child's still a victim. So I love Murderpedia for some details that sometimes Wikipedia does not have. And I love Wikipedia because it includes all the victims and all the charges, where Murderpedia just seems to focus more on the murders. Um, but she did have the 13 life sentences, and then in addition to the 13 life sentences, she was found guilty on 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted, yeah, for a total of the 13 life sentences, and it gives it all listed out, which I like. I want to know, like the details. And Dana says, yes, that's exactly what it is. And oftentimes the larger situation is the relationships with others, the victim's illness involved by being ill, equaling the Florence Nightingale syndrome. Yeah. Okay, Dina. Yeah, I had not heard of the Florence Nightingale syndrome like that. So that's interesting. I might definitely look that up. Yeah, but that makes sense. And Carol says she would cause injuries to herself when she was younger to get attention. Exactly. Yeah, and that is correct. She would, and that's why many believe that was maybe part of what she was trying to do was bring attention to herself, by causing the heart attacks and other situations to occur, and then be part of the solution, part with it so she could get the pat on the back and things like that. So, unfortunately, 4 children died, and another child will never live life the way that she should have. And that was Katie Phillips. And Katie Phillips, like I said earlier, she has permanent brain damage, partial paralysis, and partial blindness. And my heart goes out to her. That's absolutely terrible. Um, then let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of looking through Murderpedia a little bit just to see, refresh myself with some of the differences here because there are a little bit of a difference between some of the information sometimes. And that's Carol. The doctor shot. Yeah. Oh, yes, that is true. That is true. And I should have brought that up. Carol says she also doctor shopped for herself as she was getting older for medical purposes. And that is correct. Um, yeah, and see on Murderpedia, they go into a little more information here. Um, it says when she was younger, she exhibited some worrying tendencies, such as while she was growing up, she would wear the dressing and cast over wounds that she would use to draw attention to herself without actually allowing these injuries to be examined. She became overweight as an adolescent and became increasingly attention seeking, often showing aggression towards others. She spent considerable time in hospitals seeking medical attention for a string of physical ailments, which culminated in the removal of her perfectly healthy appendix. I can't imagine. This was slow to heal as she insisted on interfering with the surgical scar. She was also known to self harm and had to resort to doctor hopping, which is what Carol was bringing up. Um, yeah, and as medical practitioners became familiar with her attention seeking behavior, she would move to the next doctor. So, yeah, it definitely starts getting into some of what Carol was bringing up here. And that's true. And, it's kind of sad because I wonder if the parents, had really realized, I don't know. I mean, we're not talking like the early 20s or something, So, my question is, how did nobody realize, how serious this was? Was there just not enough information out there, at the time? Um, I mean, she was born in 68, so um by the time she was 20, we're in the late 80s. So, part of me in my mind says there had to be um, more awareness of mental illness, treatments available for things. Um, but in the 80s, I was at this time, by the time she was 20 and doing some of these behaviors, I was still a teenager. Um, So I don't really know what it was like out there in the world as far as this stuff goes. I was in high school and hanging out with friends and just doing what teenagers do. So for anybody out there who has information on that, like please feel free to enlighten me a little bit here because I just in my mind, I'm thinking, there had to be some kind of awareness that this problem was that serious and get her help. And if that had happened, maybe these children would still be alive. Um, and maybe, then again, the mental health issues were just not as widely addressed, even in the 80s, is what I would like to think that they were. I know there's far more attention drawn to mental illness now than what there was, but to what extent there was attention drawn to it back then, I don't know. That's what I'm wondering, Carol. Carol says someone had to question something, and it just really blows my mind that I haven't seen any information, um, to suggest that. Okay, let's see. Munchausen didn't even get first diagnosed until 1951. Okay, so that might make a little more sense as to why this may not have been addressed like I think it should have. I mean, I agree, Carol, somebody still had to question something, but if it wasn't diagnosed until 1951, we're still talking, you know, a still relatively short time after, because she was a child exhibiting this in the early 70s, mid 70s. Maybe there just wasn't as much known about it at the time, you know. But that's what I'm so curious about is, as time goes on, getting up into the 80s and stuff, um, was there still just not as much known, even with it being diagnosed in 1951? But that at least makes more sense, as to it was a newer thing. Yeah, you're right. It's one of those crimes that exist by not being obvious. Yeah, that's true, Dina. And then Carol says there was noticing of strange things even when she was younger. Correct. Yeah. And, I just read some of the things that she was doing, such as wearing dressings and a cast over wounds that she never really allowed anybody to diagnose and look at. Um, they said she had a perfectly healthy appendix removed and then interfered with the healing from it because she would mess with the scar and stuff. So, and they say she was young when she was doing this. So I know people saw things, but with Dina sharing with me, well, all of us, that it wasn't diagnosed until 1951. Maybe when she was a child, they knew there were problems, but just, I know, Carol. um, maybe the people around her just didn't know what was wrong. Maybe it was new enough that people just still didn't know at that point. So I could maybe see that when she was a child. I just don't understand by the time she's grown and working in the hospital how nobody has still not questioned things enough to be getting her help. And I don't know, maybe because she was an adult, it just didn't work the same way as when she was a child. It's a horrible situation, and it just baffles my mind. Um, Dana says was probably just dismissed as a silly kid or hypochondriac. And that is true. That's true. I knew somebody when I was little who all the adults, oh yeah, they're just a hypochondriac, and they just laugh about it. And they would talk about how, there was nothing wrong, and this person went to the doctor for this and was so mad because they couldn't get medications, and they keep going and going and going until a doctor got them on medications. And I remember hearing the conversations about this adult, and everybody, when they would say, oh, they're a hypochondriac, they were sitting around laughing about it. And I didn't understand as a kid, what I mean. I kind of knew they were saying nothing was wrong, and this person was trying to insist there was and having things done. But I didn't really process it the way I do now. And now to think back on those conversations and seeing everybody laughing, oh yeah, ha, 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 they're just a hypochondriac. It hits me different now because now I'm older and now I'm sitting here like, what was funny about that? Was this somebody else who legitimately needed some kind of mental help and everybody just kind of sat around blowing it off like you're saying, Dina, just dismissed as a hypochondriac and when really there was something serious going on. So yeah, now I'm sitting here thinking back on that, like, what the heck? um, Carol also says there have been a few nurses here in the US that have done the same thing. Yeah, and that's something maybe we can look at doing some shows on as well, or some of the nurses here who have done it. Um, and yeah, Carol also mentioned about her poking at the scar from her appendix surgery. Yeah, I don't know that I want to sit there. I've had surgeries and I've had scars, and I sure did not want to sit there and poke. Let me see here. Just realized we are at 51 minutes. Okay, we're still good. I know we're going to try to go to break. So let me see, Dave, are you wanting to go to break here in a couple minutes or? Yeah, okay. All right, we'll give Dave just a minute here. Let's see. Okay, so Carol says now with stricter laws, they can't get away with things as easy. Yeah, that's true. And there's more awareness to mental illness now, I think, than what there was. Hello, Godfather.
Hello, I just wanted to let everybody know that I am working tirelessly. I lost my hard drive in the computer. I'm stripping other computers to try and get it to work right now. So hopefully I'll be in after the break. We'll see here.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you in here. I can see him in the bottom of the screen, even though y'all can't. He's trying to help us and he's reading y'all's comments in here. But yeah, he's been feverishly working. I've been watching him down there.
They're all going to think that I'm being neglectful. It'll be 2 weeks without the Godfather.
They're gonna go through withdrawals. You're gonna come in there like, Phoenix, who is that? You have a new co-host.
All right. I'll keep going and then just give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go to break.
Okay, well, just let me know. Send me a private chat when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, he really is. I can see him. I've been watching him periodically down in the bottom, and I mean, he's down there working. He's going at it. He's been at it for hours since 3 o'clock Central Time, I guess, is when it happened or when he found it. And so it's been nonstop. He's been updating me all day. So, I apologize if tonight seems a little bit off with me. It's my first time trying to do a show by myself with everybody, but we're getting through it. And Dave, um, Carol says we love you. So he's Carol. He's down in the bottom giving you the thumbs up here. both hands going. Let's see. Dina says Munchausen can become a bizarre romantic connection to the patient or often the victim's parents. Oh wow. Thank you, Penny. I appreciate it. um yeah, and Scott Curtis says hashtag monsters are real. Carol says, I'm glad they were able to catch her before she left and went to a different hospital. Oh my gosh, I know. And before any more babies and kids were murdered. I mean, which goes with to a different hospital, but I mean, yeah, it really hit me hard. That was like working as a firefighter EMT. different runs can hit you different, depending. But anytime you got called out for something that was serious with a child, not just that they're sick and puking and, they want you to just take them to the hospital, um, but something serious, there's it hits you different, and those were the times that I went home and my kids might be in bed asleep and I'd open their doors and have some tears go down my face and be like, thank you, God, that my children are in bed asleep and they're healthy and happy, and that's what I said with this case, they were children and infants, and it was one of these stories that I was working on that just kind of hit me in that different way because they haven't had a life yet. You know, these children and babies, they're just starting. I've got a 1 month old granddaughter. I couldn't imagine entrusting a nurse with her and that nurse violating it. Um, so it really pulled at my heartstrings. Um, Dina says that's bizarre. She was doing that to complete strangers in a hospital. Yeah, and when I was reading just a little bit ago, it says they will do it to other people not related, but it is usually like an example of the predominant thing they see is would be like a mother to her own child. So it is more rare that they would do it to somebody else, but um, yeah, I mean, it's horrible. And then Carol says the deaths are so sad and she possibly could have gotten away with more. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And in fact, I did question, I wonder if there are any other deaths that for some reason they just didn't link in or even question it. Such as, I mentioned, I'm sorry, what was her name? Becky, I'm wanting to say Becky. Let me make sure. Yes, okay, I'm right. Becky Phillips, the 9-week old. Um, like I said, at first she was getting by with it. They didn't question any anything malicious with it. They thought it was SIDS, and so she came pretty close to getting by with that one. So yeah, I mean that's a legitimate thing, Carol, to say she could have possibly have gotten away with more. Carol says surprising to hear a woman doing it to children. Yeah, and I agree. And I'm gonna, tell you, there was a lot of times that what I have seen, it was women doing things to children, even as an EMT. I will tell you, most of the abuse that I saw directly to children, being burned and other things, it was by the mother. It wasn't by the father. Now, it does happen a lot, and there were those situations that I definitely saw firsthand. But yeah, Dina, you're right. It's most common for women to do it to children. And that is predominantly what I witnessed. Oh, outside their own family, yeah, I might agree with that, but with their own children, it was mom, and I'm telling you, it was hard. I know when I first came out of EMT school, my very first run was a mother who had burned her own daughter, and the daughter was one, and she blamed the daughter for it. I told her to move, you know. There's the Godfather. Hello, Dave. Okay, he popped back out. So, you know, either way, it's really sad. But I think as a society, yes, it's very heartbreaking. And I think what it is we think women are supposed to be the nurturers. Okay, so we're getting ready to go to break. Let me get say this, and we'll go ahead and go to break. So, but women carry the children, they breastfeed them, and we bond to the children in a different way. And so I think that's why, at least for me, I can't speak for other people, but for me, I think that's what it is where my shock and amazement comes from with it being women, Carol, like you said, and on some level, a little surprising is because we think we've got that nurturing ability in us, and we're the caretakers, of the family and stuff predominantly. And and so it's kind of hard and surprising to think that women are out here doing this to children, whether it's their own or somebody else's child. It almost seems like, for me, I might be using the wrong wording here, so forgive me for that, but for lack of a better term, almost like a violation of who we are. You know, we're supposed to care for children and take them in and, love them and help protect them. And if we're a nurse, to care for them and get them healthy and send them home to loving families. So, it's kind of, I get where you're coming from, to a large degree, to say it's surprising to hear a woman doing it to children. But yeah, to somebody else's child especially. And I'm with you when it comes to kids, Carol. I couldn't even hurt a fly. But we are right now at 1 hour and 1 minute. So we are going to take a quick break and we'll be back with you. And hopefully Dave is going to be back going where he can join us. So we're going to cross our fingers, go get some coffee or, whatever you drink. And oops, sorry. I hit a wrong button there. So, but we'll see you back in just a few minutes. Dave, I think we're ready. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I guess Dave's not quite ready to come back on, but he is still working on it. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate it. So, and I appreciate y'all's input because, like, seriously, y'all help educate me on some things here and help me see another, perspective. And that's something I told Dave. I said, the show's just not going to be the same if you're not able to make it on, because, I feel like, he kind of brings a little bit of one perspective. I bring a little bit of a different perspective, but you guys help, to tie it all in and bring sometimes a totally different perspective than what either one of us have. And I absolutely love you guys in here, sharing your thoughts and opinions. And, by all means, if I ever get something a little off or completely wrong, correct me, because I'm not here to put out any kind of misinformation. And, it won't ever be on purpose. I might just misunderstand something I'm reading. So, by all means, I love y'all's input, and y'all help make the show. There wouldn't be a show without you guys, honestly. I mean, there just wouldn't. It'd just be me and Dave sitting here talking. So I appreciate you guys. And I was looking into a little something on break, because don't remember if it was you, Carol, or Dina. I'm wanting to say it was you, Carol. I'd have to scroll back up through the comments. Um, but kind of went along with one of the comments that was said. And what I was reading on a completely different website, one I don't go to a whole lot, is it was saying that as a teenager, she was very definitely exhibiting symptoms of Munchausen syndrome, and she was not getting the attention she wanted. So as a teenager, she became very obese, and her actions began to increase. And when she saw that she still was not getting the attention that she wanted, that's when she switched from herself to other people, um, and trying to get attention. So that is what is reported on biography, um, the biography website. So y'all might want to look some stuff up on there. They have, a little bit of information there on it. Um, let's see. Yeah, she did. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I don't know that I remember reading that. I did read that she worked in a nursing home. That is correct. And Carol says she was suspected of smearing feces on the walls. Yeah, isn't that special? Okay. Um, so, okay. Oh, I'm just now getting to that. Okay. I hadn't read far enough down. Okay. Yeah, Carol. I'm like, well, isn't that special? What do you say to that? I have a 3-year-old in the house, and he doesn't do that. So, yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm on the website talking about it. It was literally, Carol, the next paragraph down. I had just finished this one paragraph, and the next one down is talking about that very thing. Okay, so yeah, and then it says also that her boyfriend at that time had later said she was aggressive, manipulative, and deceptive, claiming a false pregnancy as well as rape before the end of the relationship. Um, yeah, but here it says she went on to train as a nurse and was suspected of odd behaviors such as smearing feces on walls in a nursing home where she trained. So, yep, I just hadn't gotten quite down to that paragraph yet. Yep, I agree with you, Carol. That is gross. And then went on to make an accusation of rape and a false pregnancy. Um, wow. I have so many things I want to say, and yet there's nothing to say in a way. I'm just, wow. Anyway, um, she had taken out a 6 month contract. Now, this I hadn't seen on the other websites unless I somehow just skipped over it. But it says she had taken out a 6 month contract at the understaffed Grantham and Kesteven Hospital in Lincolnshire, which is the hospital that all this happened. But I didn't know she was on a 6 month contract. Um, and they were severely understaffed with only 2 trained nurses on day shift and 1 for night shift when she started. So, like they said here, that might explain um, how people kind of miss some of this, for a time, Um, let's see. Yeah, Carol, that's correct. It was during her training, her nursing training, that she was smearing the feces on the wall at the nursing home. So yeah, now that I'm reading this, it makes a little bit more sense as to why maybe she was able to involve so many children in this before actually being caught. Because that just seems like an awful lot of children. If we were talking elderly people, severely ill adults, maybe they would not have suspected as much. But with it being infants and children, I would have thought that it would have caught people's attention a whole lot faster. Wait a minute, how do we have so many infants dying? So that might explain it. It's not a lot. 2 nurses on days and 1 on nights. Um, and then here they're going through the victims and kind of some of the same stuff we had talked about. Sorry, I don't mean to keep picking at myself. I go through phases where I want to grow my hair out, but it just bothers me. And I end up shaving it off and starting over. It's a love-hate relationship with trying to grow my hair out. So I apologize. I keep messing with it. Um, I know I must look weird. Just overlook me with it. I'm trying not to shave it off and grow it out. Um, but anyway, it says that all its nursing colleagues were confused by the absence of alarm monitors at the time, which had failed to sound when one of her victims stopped breathing. And they're talking about Liam, which was her first victim. And he died. Um, so there's things that they were seeing. Um, let's see, he suffered brain damage and remained alive only with the help of life support machines. Yeah. So her deaths, the deaths of the victims, were happening pretty much back to back. Obviously to only be about a 2 month time span. Yeah, no, no, they just, thought that some things were a little odd, such as the absence of alarm monitors at the time. Um, and then she almost got by with that because when they made the decision to take him off life support, his death was um, recorded as heart failure. Yeah. Yeah, so that goes with what Carol was saying. She was not questioned about him. It was recorded as just heart failure, and she was not questioned about her role in Liam's death. And then 2 weeks after Taylor's death, Liam Taylor, her next victim was Timothy Hardwick, the 11-year-old with cerebral palsy. And she summoned the resuscitation team, who found him without a pulse and turning blue, and they were unable to revive him. An autopsy later failed to provide an obvious cause of the death, although his epilepsy was officially blamed. So there's another one that she almost got by with. And if I remember right, Dave, you might remember this, and you can nod your head yes or no, maybe. But doesn't insulin leave the body fairly quick? That's what I was thinking. I remembered. It's been a while since I've been in EMT school, but we did have to go over it, over some of this stuff. And that's what I thought. So if she had used insulin for most of these crimes, that might be part of why the autopsy didn't just necessarily give them questions. Maybe by the time they did it, the insulin had already pretty much diminished. And then there was 1-year-old Kaylee Desmond, and they had discovered an odd puncture hole under her armpit through an examination, and they discovered an air bubble near the puncture mark, which they attributed to an accidental injection, but no investigation was initiated. And I got to tell you, that just boggles my mind as well, because how would you not question at all when a couple kids have already died and you're finding an injection mark in the armpit with an air bubble? And that's true, Carol. They probably did not test for excessive insulin. They probably would not have even thought about it, to be honest. So yeah, that's true. But here again, like, throw your thoughts at me on this, because I'm thinking a 1-year-old child, and they're saying they're thinking it's an accidental puncture wound with an air bubble near it. Well, I can get they don't want to jump to, hey, somebody's purposely doing this, and I can get that aspect, but it seems like to me in my mind, it would at least warrant asking the nurses on duty, hey, what happened, even if you're not suspecting wrongdoing as such, and you're thinking it's an accident, to not question anything at all and finding an air bubble. That doesn't just mean that, oh, I accidentally just poked her, but wouldn't the air have to have been injected in her? And how would you accidentally inject air into her armpit? So I don't know, like, throw your thoughts at me. I see Carol saying these children were already sick, and that's true. Yeah, and IV machines now have an air bubble. Yeah, that's true. They do. They log an air bubble. They log everything. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm just, like I said, my mind just goes in all these directions, and sometimes they may be valid, and other times it might be kind of silly for me to question some of what I do. If it was just a puncture hole, I don't know that I might question as to why nobody was questioned about that. But considering there was an air bubble near the puncture wound in her armpit, I don't know. I'm just sitting here kind of playing devil's advocate to a point, like, that didn't pique anybody's curiosity to ask about it, because you would have to inject that air, So I don't know, but she almost got by with that. And then the very next day, Bradley Gibson, who had pneumonia, went into unsuspected cardiac arrest. And I get that these kids were sick, but my gosh, how many cardiac arrests, have to happen? I don't know. This just seems excessive. It really does. It just seems really excessive to have that many kids with cardiac arrest. According to this, they said that she was examined and they found the puncture hole with an air bubble. Let me go back up here. So it says that Kaylee Desmond was admitted March 3rd of 91 with a chest infection, and she seemed to be recovering well from it. However, 5 days later, while in Beverly Ollett's attendance, Kaylee went into cardiac arrest in the same bed where Liam Taylor had died a fortnight before. The resuscitation team, uh, were able to revive her, and she was transferred to another hospital in Nottingham, where the attending physicians discovered an odd puncture hole under her armpit during a thorough examination. They also discovered an air bubble near the puncture mark, which they attributed to an accidental injection, but no investigation was initiated. And I get it, she's at a different hospital. Your mind may not be thinking, hey, there's something suspicious. The hospital may not have even known about the other deaths. I get that aspect. I guess I get hung up on the air bubble in the armpit, and not just the puncture wound. I can see that. I'm just still somewhat questioning the air bubble being found and how that was just so easily assumed that it was accidentally injected there. So I don't know, but like I said, she was moved to a different hospital. Can that be felt? I'm not sure. Dave, if you can hear me, Carol is asking if that can be felt. What are your thoughts on that? I know you have a little medical background too. It can be felt. Okay. Yeah, Dave said it can be felt. She did not die, Carol. So it was not an autopsy. She is one of the survivors. She was moved to a different hospital. So I know that caused probably a big kink in any investigation or attention being brought to Beverly Ollett. That's why I said my question might be a little bit misplaced about the air bubble and not causing any question, because this was found at another hospital. I don't know. It just seems odd to me. It really does. Just seems odd that there was no question at all to the air bubble. I get the puncture wound, but I'm just still hung
It
up.
would it would create an air embolism, which would feel basically like a cramp. You'd feel like you couldn't take deep breaths, things like that. It would immediately make you feel sluggish in the time that it would get to work through the circulatory system to the heart. And then that would create a vapor lock in your heart, basically sending you into cardiac arrest. Yes. But
Yeah.
I do have good news. Windows is installing, but I don't
Oh,
think it'll install fast enough for me to get on yet tonight. But I'll keep chiming in as much as I can.
all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So he is correct, about that. Yes, that is very dangerous. You definitely can die from an air embolism, and I've had to deal with stuff like that on the ambulance. But you know, that's why she was transferred out, was because of the situation in itself. And they found a puncture wound and an air bubble in the armpit. So the air bubble had not traveled anywhere, not the one they found. It was still sitting in the armpit, and they found it. But apparently, enough air had been injected into her that it was able to travel. So, but the very next day, 5-year-old Bradley Gibson, who had pneumonia, went into unexpected cardiac arrest but was saved by the resuscitation team. And then subsequent blood tests showed that his insulin was high, which made no sense to the attending physicians. Yes, it is very close to the heart, Carol. Absolutely. So yeah, she was definitely trying to get in there and get the job done. That's for sure. But I mean, these instances are happening literally, some of them back to back, like the very next day. There's another child going into cardiac arrest. And so, on some level, I mean, it's just baffling me that there's this many victims And, thank God there's not more, and they caught it then. But to me, this is still a lot, when you're dealing with children who just have a chest infection or pneumonia and all of a sudden they're in full cardiac arrest and stuff. I don't know. It's it's just crazy to me. And then right after that, we had 2-year old, and I know I'm probably butchering the name. It's spelled Yik. I would pronounce it Yik, but it probably has totally different sounds in another language. Yik Hung Chan, and this is the child that they called Henry. Um, but they found him, and he was blue and appeared to be in considerable distress when Owlett raised the alarm, but he responded well to oxygen. And oh, that looks like a yeah. That just makes me so sad. um, so anyway, he responded well to oxygen. Another attack resulted in his transfer to a larger hospital in Nottingham where he recovered, and his symptoms were attributed to a fractured skull, the result of a fall. So here so far, nobody's looking at her. Nobody's really questioning. Nobody's questioning anything. It says, Carol, when when she didn't get one, she went after another. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like literally back to back, just bam, 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 bam. And that's what baffles me is that nobody's really questioning anything. They're attributing it to a fall or, this or that. How did he fall out a window? I am not seeing anything. It just says was attributed to a fractured skull, the result of a fall, and that's all it's stating here. Um, and then that's where she turned her attention to Becky and Katie Phillips, who were 2 months old, and they were kept for observation as a result of their premature delivery. A bout of gastroenteritis brought Becky into the ward on April 1st, 1991, and when Owlett took over her care 2 days later, she raised the alarm, claiming that Becky appeared hypoglycemic and cold to the touch, but no ailment was found. Baby Becky was sent home with her mother. During the night, she went into convulsions and cried out in apparent pain, but when summoned, a doctor suggested she had colic. The parents kept her in their bed for observation, and she died during the night. Despite an autopsy, pathologists could find no clear cause of death. And after that, they took Becky's surviving twin, Katie, into the hospital just for observation due to that. And like I said at the beginning of the show, that's where they had determined upon Becky's death that it was cot death or SIDS. And due to that, they brought Katie in for observation. And then, if you remember, Katie, the twin sister, she survived, but she is the twin that has the partial paralysis, partial blindness, and permanent brain damage. So, her parents went through double, the situation with Beverly Owlett. So let me see. Sorry, I was watching Dave, trying to make sure he wasn't saying something to us. Okay, he says no. I'm trying not to be distracted here, but I want to make sure I'm keeping up with him too. Y'all, I appreciate y'all working with us tonight. We didn't want to cancel on you guys again. We wanted to be here and see y'all and get a show out, but sometimes life happens here. So let's see. Yeah, Carol, very sad. Dina says, what kind of abuse did she go through as a child herself? Carol, if you have any information on that, feel free to help answer Dina. She's asking what kind of abuse that Beverly Ollett went through, and I'm not seeing anything about abuse to her. I am looking. Hold on. Let me see here. Let me go back here. The bulk of what I've read about her early life is talking about her odd behavior. So Carol says she did not see anything either. So I just wanted to make sure I was not overlooking something. But I can't find anything, and Carol says she has not found anything. Um, Really, what's being talked about in her childhood is revolving around her strange behaviors with the Munchausen syndrome. I will keep, as we're talking, I'll keep scrolling through different sites and seeing if I can come across something that maybe we've missed. Dina says a very strict authoritarian parent can cause this. Okay. Okay. And that, that kind of makes sense. Um, so I do want to let me go back here a second and see. I'm trying to see, make sure I covered everything here. Yeah, we covered the trial was about 2 months, and apparently she was sick through the majority of the trial. So she was only in court a total of 16 days of the trial. Um, yeah, and during the whole trial, she denied any involvement, and it doesn't state how long she was in the hospital before admitting to some of the victims. She has not admitted to all of them, but she has admitted to some. Um, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about that. Let me see. I'm trying to see what information is here. All right, so they're saying Ollett was the subject of a Mirror newspaper inquiry in May 2005 when it was revealed that she had received over 25,000 euros in state benefits since her incarceration in 1993. In August of 2006, Ollett applied for a review of her sentence, which led the probation service to contact the victims' families about the process. And the latest it gives on that is that the review remains pending. Um, Carol says they checked 25 cases or patients. Wow, that's a lot. And Scott says surely they won't ever let her out on parole. You know what? I sure hope not. And like I said, if somebody truly has a mental illness, I can have compassion for that part of it. And I can have compassion for the fact that she never received any kind of help. But I'm with you, Scott. Surely they will still not let her out on parole because, we don't want any more victims, and I don't know enough about that to know. I don't think that can be cured. If somebody has information on that, fill me in. but I don't think she needs to be out. I think she needs to be in. She needs to be there for the rest of her life, and definitely get her the help that she needs. But she needs to have the consequences of her actions as well. And my heart can go out to her as a child, because as a child she needed parents or people in her life that could see she was in trouble and needed help and get her that help, and I can have compassion um, for her in that aspect. But that doesn't negate what she has done to her victims, and it doesn't mean that she should be able to be out and hurt people again. Carol says given 13 life sentences, so I don't think she can ever get out. Yeah, she's eligible for parole, and I'm with you, Carol. I don't I don't think that with 13 consecutive life sentences that somebody would let her out, and they have not. She became eligible for parole in 2021. I'm wanting to say it was November of 2021. I've got it written down. I know it was definitely 2021, but I'm wanting to say November of 2021 she became eligible for release. So yeah, I mean she is eligible, but that doesn't mean that somebody's going to let her get out. It just means that she's eligible. Um, okay, so Dina, thank you, Dina. Dina says that Munchausen syndrome can only be medicated and have cognitive behavioral treatment. And Carol says she is one of four children. Yes. Um, yeah, I just can't imagine anybody letting her out. I really can't. So I'm looking up a little bit on Munchausen syndrome. Um, yeah, so it says the caregiver, often appears to be a very loving and caring and extremely distraught over their child's illness. So I guess it's how they're able to get by with it for so long because it is that trusted person. In this case, a hospital nurse, and we trust the doctors and nurses, in the hospitals, and but they're saying, it's usually like a mother and their child. So, of course, you trust them to have the child's best interest at heart. Um, It says people with MSP. I'm looking at Munchausen syndrome by proxy right now. Um, it says they may simply lie about symptoms, alter tests such as contaminating a urine sample, falsify medical records, or they may actually induce symptoms through various means such as poisoning, suffocating, starving, and causing infection. And the characteristics are common. Certain characteristics are common in a person with MSP, including that they are a parent or caregiver, usually a mother, maybe a healthcare professional, is very friendly and cooperative with the healthcare providers, appears quite concerned. Some may seem overly concerned about their child, may suffer from Munchausen syndrome, a related disorder in which a person repeatedly acts as if they have a physical or mental illness when they are not really sick. And, it goes on into other possible warning signs and stuff. Um, it says the exact cause of Munchausen syndrome is not known, but researchers are looking at the roles of biological and psychological factors in its development. Some theories suggest that a history of abuse or neglect as a child or the early loss of a parent may be factors in its development. Some evidence suggests that major stress, such as marital problems, can trigger it. So, Dina, that might kind of go along with exactly kind of what you said about you said a very strict or authoritarian parent can cause this. So let's see. Carol says she has been put on the home office list of criminals who will never be eligible for parole. Okay. 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 I had not seen that. Thank you, Carol. The home office list. I've not even heard of that. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Because, well, I don't know. It says never be eligible for parole, but everything else says that she became eligible. So I don't know. Same website. Okay. Okay. So on the same website. I wonder let me go back here and look because I'm wondering. Let me look something up here real quick because Carol, you might be able to help me connect some dots here. Let's see. I'm looking for this here, the trial and imprisonment. Under the aftermath area. Okay, so back on the other website I was on. Okay. Let me go back over there because I'm back on Wikipedia and so Wikipedia here. I'm gonna switch back over and I'll look under the aftermath area, Carol. But here it says on Wikipedia that she had been set at 40 years for the tariff. That's what they call it, her minimum tariff. Her minimum tariff expired in November 2021, and she is now eligible for release on parole. So that was on Wikipedia. I'm going to Murderpedia now, and you said under the aftermath area. So, oops, hold on, reload. Okay. Let me do this. Sorry, I'm on my cell phone looking it up. I'm looking. Hold on, I'm scrolling down. Trial and hold on, Carol, I'm scrolling. The crimes. I'm still scrolling. The arrest, the trial, the aftermath. Okay, there we are. Okay, so that is okay. So some of that's the same information. Okay, so let me see. Rather than going to prison, Allett was incarcerated at Rampton Secure Hospital, a security facility mainly housing Mental Health Act. She began her attention-seeking behavior. Yeah, we covered that. Okay, so here it says in August 2000. Okay, thank you, Carol. Yeah, I was scrolling. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so let's see. First paragraph, last sentence. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I don't know how. Okay. The appalling nature of her crimes placed her on the Home Office list of criminals who will never be eligible for parole. Okay, so that's where it says, okay. See, I don't know the difference because this website is saying that she's never eligible. So here it also states Mr. Justice Stanley Barnton, sitting in London, confirmed the minimum sentence of 30 years, which is the same term previously recommended by the trial judge and the then Lord Chief Justice. Allett will be 54 before she will be considered for parole. So I don't know, when you scroll on down, and this was posted December 6th of 2007, so she'll be eligible or considered for parole at 54 years old because she admitted to some of the murders while incarcerated. Okay, so let me let me clarify, Carol. Okay, so is what you're saying, I want to make sure I'm understanding because I'm like confused by by some of this because like I said, in one part she's eligible and another part she's not. So are you saying that because she admitted to some of the murders while incarcerated that originally she would be eligible for parole, but then that changed after she admitted to the murders to the homeless? Okay, Dave is nodding yes. Okay, see, that's where some of my confusion was coming in. Is okay, yeah, and Carol saying yes too. Okay, see, I wasn't understanding this, and that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay, yeah, this. Okay, the serial killer has been served a minimum sentence of children or care. The higher court ruled today. Okay. Okay, I think I'm understanding now. Okay. I apologize. Like I was like so confused trying to piece together what they were saying because I could see, that it was saying the same thing that Wikipedia was on the 30 years and stuff or 40 years, whatever. Um, but then I saw what you were saying there. So I was like, okay, I just wasn't understanding what that was and what the difference was. Yeah. And I get that. Thank you, Dave. Yeah. That's what I started piecing together when I saw that. So that's what I thought y'all were trying to tell me was that since she admitted to those, that's where it changed it. So that makes more sense there. Okay. Well, now I feel stupid. I just wasn't getting it. I was, for some reason, it just, I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not understanding something. I'm so confused. And see, I don't have Dave sitting up here with me. He's just at the bottom going, Carol, I appreciate you so much. Like you help keep me straight too. You and Dina both, like y'all are on it. Y'all help me get through this. So I appreciate it. Yeah, Carol. I'm so excited. I'm with you on the exclamation points. We can throw a couple on the end of that sentence for me too. She doesn't need to get out. And like I said many times, my heart goes out to her as that child who needed that help and people to recognize and stuff. And for whatever reason, it was overlooked, whether it just was a lack of knowledge, about these mental illnesses or, whatever it was, my heart goes out to her for that. But I'm glad she's not going to get out because it still doesn't change what she did. And Carol, I do too. I'm going to tell you, there's been times I have sat up. I started looking into a story when we finish the show and we pick one. There have been times that I've literally gotten off the show and sat up till 3:30 in the morning. And there was one in particular. We had Dina come on with us. Well, the least Eliza Lamb one. Dina sat up with me, and what was it, Dina? Like 3:30 in the morning, and we did that a couple nights, literally a couple nights, not one. And research, and then she came on the show to help us out. So yeah, I mean, sometimes it's I'm on it, like right then. I don't even wait a day. Sometimes I'm right on it, but I love it too, and I really appreciate you guys, and I know Dave does too. We've talked about it. We wouldn't have a show without you guys, and it really means a lot. The more active you guys are, the more fun it is for us to not just look into it, but to bring it to you guys and get that input and see what you guys have to add. And Dave's listening to me, and he's down there doing this. So we've talked enough. I know I can kind of speak for him on it, we're not just blowing smoke when we say, we appreciate you guys. We really love getting on here with everybody and doing these shows. Um, Carol says, I love looking into these cases but I also pray she gets the help she needs too. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I want her held accountable for the crimes that she committed. Most definitely. Where there is a legitimate situation, mental illness, I can have some compassion in that area and agree that they really do need the help that is legitimately needed. I have no compassion when someone just tries to use something as an excuse that's not really there. But when it's legitimate, I'm all for them getting the help they need.
Yeah, and she's under maximum security psychiatric care. It got to the point where to get her to heal some of the wounds she self-inflicted or wouldn't let heal, they actually had to restrain her to the bed to get it done. And she's in severe isolation to where she's not around anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Dina says, look how many victims lived with lifetime injury. Oh my gosh. I know, Dina. And my heart goes out to these children. My heart goes out to the families. Um, and like I said, I can have compassion for Beverly Ollett as far as the mental illness part goes, but it doesn't excuse what she did and what these survivors are having to live with personally, as well as the families who lost their children who lost a sibling. Is horrible. Carol says, my husband works at a facility that has a dangerous lockdown ward. Oh my goodness. I bet you have quite a few stories you could share with us from things you heard. I have a best friend. I met him when I was 15 and he was 16. And we're still very, very good friends to this day. God love that man for putting up with me for so many years, but he's still around and he is literally one of my best friends. And for a time, he was a deputy sheriff and he was injured and had to retire from the field. So he took a job working in a similar situation as your husband, Carol. And I've heard some stories from him, so I can only imagine some of the stories you and your husband have. Some cases where I worked went there. And then Dina says, still it's choosing to victimize others, babies no less. Oh, I know. That's what I say. I have no compassion, none at all for that. She very definitely needs to be held accountable. So, Carol, you worked there and saw some of it. Because you say where I worked went there, so I'm not sure if you're meaning worked there or when you just went there, or maybe both. Maybe you worked there and went there to see your husband. So you have, but it sounds like you have firsthand knowledge of things you saw. Let me see. It feels like my daughter on the stairs. I thought I heard somebody. Baby, I'll be up in a minute, okay? I saw I saw little eyeballs peeking over the very top of the stairs. Y'all can't see her because my camera's down, but I saw her little curly hairs and eyeballs. She's waiting for me to come up and tuck her in. And Scott says if she was imprisoned in the U.S., she likely wouldn't have survived very long. Inmates in the U.S. don't usually take kindly to those who hurt children. Oh my gosh, you are absolutely right. Absolutely, Scott. And Carol says, from my facility to the lockdown ward where he is at. Oh, okay. Okay. I understand now, Carol. I apologize. Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. Work doing court cases. Oh wow. Okay. Wow, I bet you I bet you could sit here probably for hours and share some stuff with us. That's awesome. Yeah, I bet you have some doozies to share. And Scott, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it doesn't matter, you know, that's what we've talked about with different crimes is, you know, even with certain SA crimes, with children, you're the low man on the totem pole. Even the rapist, who's usually like the low man on the totem pole, looks at himself as higher up than you because they justify it as, well, my victim was an adult. They weren't a child, they were an adult. So when you are imprisoned for anything having to do with children, it's a whole other ball game. You probably go, well, I was gonna say go to bed. You probably don't get to go to bed at night, to be honest. But if you do get a night where you get to just go to bed and go to sleep, you're probably wishing for death. So yeah, I agree with you, Scott. Dina says she had more than just Munchausen. If she was so bad, they had to restrain her. And, that's possible. And Carol says sleep with one eye open. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Dina, when you said, I'm going to tell you how my mind works, which can be scary. You said that, and I'm thinking of the Metallica song, Sleep with One Eye Open, gripping your pillow tight. But that's about, yeah, definitely, Carol. But no, Dina, that's true. And I wonder, when the website's talking about how abuse and neglect and stuff can be is believed to be a contributing factor, and you're talking about earlier, your comment about an overbearing, um, strict parent. I wonder how much that really did affect her, not just with the Munchausen, but maybe in other areas of her life. Dave put a picture of her up, and I'm not trying to be rude by saying it, but she almost kind of looks like there may be more going on with her than that. There's just a little something there that just doesn't look right to me. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but just looking at her, I kind of get that impression that something's off. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you doing that. Um, and I don't mean that to be ugly, genuinely not meaning that to be ugly, but she just kind of has that look that there may be something more going on with her. So Dina, I agree with you. Carol says definitely. Um, and it's a really sad situation. I do hope that she does get the help she legitimately needs, and can finish out her years of a more sound, rational person. Um, you know, um, Thank you, Carol. I work because I don't want to sound horrible. You get me mad enough, and sometimes I don't care. There's another side, but I don't try to generally just be a hateful person, and I certainly don't ever want to be disrespectful to a legitimate health concern, whether it's mental or physical or something. I don't think that that's something to necessarily joke about or make light of, or whatever. I don't want to be a horrible person about that. So I appreciate you, Carol. But I really do hope she gets the help that she needs. And we're coming up on 2 hours, so I know we're going to be ending this here in just a minute. But I'm also glad at the same time, due to the heinous crimes that she committed, I'm also very grateful that she will not be getting out and that she is going to have to serve every day of her life locked up and having to take some kind of accountability. Um, hopefully, the fact that she did admit to the crimes that she admitted to, I'm going to just say I hope that is a sign of her maybe hopefully getting some of the help that she needs, and maybe having some normalcy, for lack of a better word, come back and live her life in a more positive, stable, mentally stable way from here on out. Thank you, Carol, and I appreciate all of you being here. Um, so yeah, we're at the two hour mark. Carol says, "Remember to smile as always." I appreciate you. My birthday was Wednesday, and so we're doing my birthday cookout tomorrow. So I'm excited. Dina says there's some hidden issues in her background. Most definitely. So yeah, I agree. She does, Dina. Thank you. I'm going to have a great weekend. I hope all of you guys have a wonderful and fantastic weekend as well. And the Godfather, I guess, is wanting to say his goodbyes as well.
Yes, thank you guys for bearing with me. It's starting to just now upload as I thought it would. But I just want to thank all you guys for being patient with us and stuff. So uh, it really means a lot. And, you know, she's right. It wouldn't be the same if you guys weren't in the chat and keeping us going and making us scratch our brains and stuff. So I really, 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 really appreciate that. And don't worry, you're not going to go another week without me. So
Yeah, it definitely was not the same without you on tonight. Thank you for the happy birthdays. And I definitely, like I said, I'm looking forward to the weekend and celebrating. I don't know what plans you guys have, you as well, Godfather. But I hope you all have a very, very wonderful and blessed weekend. And Dave, I just also want to throw in that I appreciate you not only having to work on your computer, but still being here for us tonight to help produce and throw in comments. It was great having you do that, and just the dedication that you do give to the show and the network. So
absolutely.
I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yep. And just to let everyone know, keep in the back of your mind, May 4th will be on Thursdays from 8 to 10.
Thank you. Yes, I did forget to mention that. So yes, we are going to go to Thursday nights, and it's I get messed up with the Central and Eastern time. Trust me, that's not always good. Not to say, "Oops, my bad," but it's 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And Carol, congratulations on your daughter's wedding next weekend as well. We will miss you and look forward to seeing you on the next show.
Yes, absolutely. And when probably after Halloween, we'll look at going back to Fridays. It's just everybody wants Fridays for cookouts and going to the river and holidays and whatnot. So this way we get you guys live in the participation in the chats. Otherwise, it's just me talking to Phoenix, and she won't be around long.
I'll start looking at you like Mr. Bean.
Right? Oh, good grief. All right, guys. I'll end it the way I usually do. Look for the small stuff, things less noticed. Step back and look outside the big picture and get the full picture. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.